welcome to our latest edition of Link, where we're here outside Territorial Headquarters in London with a great selection of stories from both home and away. On the away front, we travel to Kenya and we see the work of the Salvation Army in a drought relief programme. On the home front, we go inside Nottingham Prison and get a sense of the valuable work of prison ministry.
I've been to Ukraine to see how UK Salvationists are helping transform the lives of abandoned children, condemned to life in woefully underfunded orphanages. And Anne Reid is out and about on the streets of London trying to ascertain God's perspective on the world.
But first, let's go behind the scenes and join Commissioners John and Betty Mattia as they take up their appointment as territorial leaders of the UK and Ireland Territory.
April the 27th in Doncaster, and Salvationists are gathering in a brand new building to welcome their brand new territorial leaders, Commissioners John and Elizabeth Mattia. Conducting the installation ceremony is Commissioner Robin Dunster, the Chief of the Staff.
Commissioner John Mattia, you are installed as Territorial Commander. Commissioner Elizabeth Mattia, you are installed as Territorial President of Women's Ministries. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
John Mattia was born in Coatbridge in Scotland, the older of two boys. As a youngster, he attended the now closed Wycliffe Corps, which became his spiritual home.
I thank God for the memories, the people who were present in my formative years. I left the army in the arrogance of youth when I was about 18 or 19. I led a very different lifestyle. I caused a lot of heartbreak to those who loved me, but the Lord was faithful and he brought me back to the army. And I came back to the Lord and the army when I was about 24, 25.
Elizabeth, or Betty, is also a Scot, from Ladybank in Fife. She was brought up of Scotland and then the Brethren Church.
I had no idea what the Salvation Army was about whatsoever until I went to study and then went to the States for some months and worked for the Salvation Army. And on returning and graduating, I simply asked the Salvation Army for a reference. They invited me to come and work for them. And from about day one, something that was inconceivable to me at that time, the Lord called me to become a Salvation Army officer. So the call came before I was ever a Salvationist. And within 9 months, I was in the training college.
Before leaving the army at the age of 18 or so, I had felt the Lord call me to Salvation Army officership, and I had a very strong sense when I came back to the army that this was still God's will for me. And at that stage, I didn't want to compromise. I wanted to be absolutely all that God wanted me to be.
John and Betty married in 1978, 2 years after first meeting at the training college.
They are indeed a couple. Whenever you think of John Mattia, you think of Betty as well. They are certainly individuals in their own right and very strong personalities in their own right, but they complement each other tremendously. They work well together.
John and her together from the beginning, we would all see as being something special in terms of officers with particular gifts, which combined were quite a formidable combination.
Their son, also called John, was born in 1979, while they were corps officers in Godalming. Further corps and divisional appointments in England followed, until in 2001 they were made territorial leaders in the Caribbean. They were responsible for the work in 15 countries, from the Bahamas in the north to French Guiana in the south.
I have to tell you, we returned from the Caribbean changed people, better people. For me personally, I've learned to live by faith in a dimension that I wasn't doing before, and my prayer life has been transformed. I praise God for all of that.
One of the biggest lessons I learned was that people had a perception of God as being a big God. And when you ask them, why is God such a big God? And they said, because we need him to be a big God. Because life is lived on the edge. And one circumstance can throw people into absolute poverty and devastation. So they relied on a big God to see them through. And I believe that it's made a tremendous impact in my life. And I thank God for that. Because I guess maybe my God was too small.
The Matiers returned to Britain at the end of March, to temporary accommodation in South London, before starting work just a few days later. Those who know them also know the sort of leaders they're going to be.
Incredibly conscientious, very spiritual in their approach, very interested in people, will make an incredible effort to get close to people, to know what's happening on the ground, to be connected with things, with the ability to be decisive, and with an ability to encourage people through both being very good on the platform as preachers.
I believe that the gifts which they will bring to the role of Territorial Commander will be a very strong spiritual lead. They are deeply spiritual people themselves, and certainly people of the Word, but they are also able to laugh at both themselves and also at life.
Thanks for coming. God bless you.
Someone asked us just a few weeks ago what our priorities would be as the new territorial leaders. Our first priority is to listen. I want to listen to those around me. I want to engage in conversation and debate, and I want to be listening to the Lord.
Well, here we are on the 8th floor of the UK headquarters in the office of the Territorial Commander. Commissioners, we've just watched you unpacking. Have you finished now?
Well, we're still in transit, if truth be told, so we've just unpacked the very minimum. It's amazing what you can get to live without.
But we are making progress. I think just in recent days we've identified a home, and we're looking forward to that and working toward that.
But you've settled into your office, Commissioner.
Indeed, and I'm enjoying this magnificent view of the London skyline.
Great. And how are you coping with the climate?
It's cold. It's cold. I guess your blood must run thin. So we're just saying, thicken it up a bit. And please bring the sun.
But come on, you're a Scot.
I'm a Scot, but it's been a long time.
The Caribbean for 5 years, spoilt us, I guess. Hence, you'll see in my office this morning, I'm wearing my cardigan. We had a couple of very good days last week, and I'm just praying that wasn't summer.
We've also seen some clips from your welcome meeting. How did it go?
A sellout, lots of friends from around that area where we've served. It was a thrilling occasion, and we thank God for the warm and affirming welcome.
It probably helped you lose some first-time nerves.
Absolutely. It's good to be amongst well-known faces, and we were left in no doubt as to people's warmth of welcome.
And of course you've seen a great growth in the Salvation Army in the Caribbean. Do you think that's possible here too?
No question. I make no apology for saying I want the Salvation Army to grow numerically. However, I don't want that motivation to be because of denominational survival or denominational aggrandizement. We want the army to grow in order that increasingly God will be glorified in us and through us.
Now, I realise you've only been here a number of weeks, but you must have seen some changes. What are your first impressions of the territory?
5 years away, 5 weeks back, and as we engage with corps and divisions and centres, we have a strong sense that this territory is serious regarding mission, being God's people where God has placed them at this time. And we find that so encouraging.
I think also I've been impressed with a sense of purposefulness right across the generations, and people have emailed and come up to us and said, we're praying for you, we want to work together. And that's wonderful when you feel that everyone is committed to the same agenda.
Well, Commissioners, it's been a real pleasure to meet you and to get to know you, and we thank you very much for allowing us into your busy office during a very busy day. We do pray God's blessing on both of you and in the work that you do in the years to come in this territory.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to Kenya. Parts of that country haven't had any rain for 5 years. But UK officers are part of the Salvation Army's international relief team, trying to find answers not just to the present crisis, but in the long term.
For the last 3 years, East Africa has been in the grip of drought. Food is in short supply and prices have gone up. Finding water has become more difficult as water sources have dried up. When it is found, the water is often contaminated. With long distances to cover, the daily trek to collect water can take many hours. Here in Kenya, in the Machakos district, the rains have finally come, but it doesn't mean the end of the crisis.
Despite the onset of rains, the effects of 3 years drought is so big, and it will take at least 7 months before families recover, get food, if this rainfall will continue.
For Annette, the rain has come too late. One of her cows died a month ago. A second died last night, and the remaining one is ill and doesn't produce milk anymore.
There is lack of food. Sometimes we go to the market, you can't get food. When it comes to water, we walk for about 2 kilometers to get water. And sometimes we come back without the water.
If the rains continue, the maize she's been planting will be ready to harvest in 3 months. In the meantime, she has to buy maize flour, but it's expensive.
1 kg of maize is 20 shillings, and a kg of beans is 60 shillings. So if you can't afford to buy maize and beans, it is your problem.
The porridge Annette makes from the maize flour is filling enough, but it provides very few nutrients to keep everyone healthy. She is already struggling to provide for her extended family, and some days there's no food at all.
The kids go to school without food. Some are forced to not to go to school on that day, because you can't learn when you have not eaten anything.
School attendance has dropped, especially at secondary schools, which are all fee-paying, and it's here that the Salvation Army is trying to make a difference. A Salvation Army International Emergency Team has been at work here in Kenya for the past few weeks. Isaac Siandu is a Kenyan officer who is part of the team.
The effect on the schools is so bad. Many schools are half full because they can't get pupils coming, and many students dropping out, maybe even to go and beg for food on the streets of the nearby towns to survive.
Good afternoon, class. This afternoon we are going to learn about matrices and transformation.
Mumboi is one of the brightest students in her class.
I enjoy my subjects. I love my teachers. and also I love mathematics. I've been in this school for years and I would like to be an accountant after my school. 60. 41.
Her teacher thinks she stands a good chance, but Momboi's future is uncertain. Her family has very little money, and the continuing drought has made things much more difficult. For the last 2 years, her parents have not been able to pay school fees. With mounting debts, she may be forced to abandon her studies.
I feel angry, but not to my parents, because they are unable to pay the school fees, and also not to the school because the school requires the money. But the money is the problem because my father cannot get the money to buy the food.
The Salvation Army team has called a meeting with headmasters from schools in the area. The meeting is about listening to concerns and finding some solutions.
At the moment, we have a very serious problem. This year, the prices of our commodities, foodstuffs, almost rose by 50% because of the drought. And actually, the drought is still, although it has rained, still the impact has not been felt. Thank you very much for trying to assist us. We really appreciate whatever is going to come on our side.
Thank you. Good morning, my name is Captain David Kinsey. I've come from the United Kingdom, and what we found was a high percentage of the school fees was actually for the food that the school would provide for the children. And with our food for fees, we're in negotiations with the schools to provide food for children who would be excluded or taken out of school in place of school fees, so that they're then able to carry on their education, get the credits that they need so they can have a certificate at the end, and obviously then be able to get a better employment.
The plan is welcomed by students and teachers.
If we can get assistance of the food, then we will be in a position to retain the students at school, and this is going all the way to improve the academic performance of the students.
With the ground softened by the rains, people are working hard to prepare for planting. Rivers and lakes are filling, but the Salvation Army is working with communities to prepare for future dry periods.
We spoke to the Water Ministry Office and to UNICEF, water and sanitation people, and we asked them where was the best place that we could provide water to support a community. They came back to us and said we would like schools to be used as public places, because it then can't become a private land that people could be excluded from accessing the water.
In the last 2 weeks, the Salvation Army have had 200 water tanks made. Each will be able to store 5,000 litres of water. The first tank to be installed has just arrived at Mumbuni School in the Machakos district. One tank will be placed at each of the primary schools in the area and will serve the whole community. During the dry season, the tanks will be filled with water transported by tanker. But whilst there's plenty of rain, the gutters will collect rainwater from the roof.
It's a wonderful day to get the tank into the school after a long time of planning and acting, and talking. Now the tank is in the school and the water will be in, and everyone will be happy. We'll thank God when that works.
This one is very good. It's very wonderful. It's something that we have been longing for a long time, and eventually it has come. So we are very much appreciative.
The plan is to install all 200 tanks by the end of the month.
Droughts will always come back, but they'll get the people more prepared because they'll be having tanks, they'll have structures that will help them cope faster and better.
The water tanks will provide long-term help to the people in this part of Kenya. But a lot more aid is still needed now, here and in much of East Africa.
If you would like to give money to the work of the Salvation Army internationally, please contact this number. Now, if you, like me, enjoy taking a bird's eye view of a place or a situation, then you'll like our Pause for Thought with Anne Reid, as she looks at the world from God's perspective.
On my days off, I really enjoy putting on a comfy pair of shoes and exploring the streets of London. I often have a destination in mind, usually somewhere where I can get a good cup of coffee, but sometimes it's just a case of setting off and then seeing the sights and exploring the back streets of this great city. As I explore these little cobbled alleys, I like the sense of history that I get, thinking about all the people who have walked these very same streets for centuries before me. I like to looking for the blue plaques that mark where famous people have lived and sometimes died. I made a great find recently at New London Architecture. As well as having photographs and write-ups about buildings and projects that are going on in the city, there's a scale model that stretches from Stratford in the east right through to Chelsea in the west. The model is modified every time a new project gets underway. You can see the plans for the new Olympic City and the Olympic Stadium. A bird's eye view helps you to work out your shortest route between A and B. And it's easy to find some of the attractions that tourists come to London to see, places like Buckingham Palace. The view from above as well gives you a perspective of the river that is like no other vantage point. I'm still surprised that you can be on the south bank of the river at the Royal Festival Hall in Waterloo and still be further north than if you were in the King's Road in Chelsea on the north of the river. This view of the city reminds me of an amazing painting of Christ on the Cross by Salvador Dali. In most paintings, the artist places the viewer on the ground looking up at Jesus. But in this painting, we take a cosmic view, looking down on Jesus and the world below. And this painting, possibly more than any other, reminds me that it was for me personally that Jesus died. It's as if we're looking at the scene from God's perspective. I remember that God loved the world so much that he gave his son so that the whole world should be saved, and that includes me. Our worldview is very different from that of other generations. Through the internet, I can quite literally zoom in on a street in Auckland, New Zealand and see my daughter's car parked right outside her house. Similar advances in technology mean that I can't close my eyes to up-to-the-minute news of the exploitation of a coffee bean farmer in Brazil, a baby dying of AIDS or malnutrition in Malawi, a child working as a prostitute in Thailand, or a teenager sold into slavery working in my street. Seeing the needs of a fallen world from God's perspective should be the aim of every Christian and in the very makeup of every Salvationist. Evangeline Booth wrote, "I see forsaken children, I see the tears that fall from women's eyes once merry, now never laugh at all. I see the sin and sorrow of those who live in darkness. I see in lands far distant the hungry and oppressed. But behold, on a hill, Calvary." And as we take a God's eye view of the world, then we must consider our response. Evangeline Booth's song concludes, "The world for God, I give my heart, I will do my part."
Anne Reid. It's amazing the lengths that some people are prepared to go to when challenged by the needs of others. For a group of Salvationists from Bournemouth, Glasgow and Sheffield, that's meant giving up their summer holidays and paying their own fares to reach a former Soviet republic and children in desperate straits. Ukraine, breadbasket of the vast Soviet Empire. Trappings of its important role in the second half of the 20th century everywhere to be seen. But all this magnificence belies a country that may have rid itself of hardline communism, only to face the harshest of economic conditions. Today, the country is overwhelmed by grinding poverty, violence, and a huge wave of homelessness. 120,000 children are either living or begging on the streets. In the capital, Kiev, they colonize the wasteland beyond the city's main railway station and cling to the pipes that carry the hot water through this industrial wilderness.
Mum and Dad are divorced. I can't live with my mum because she's always drinking vodka.
Ignoring warnings about brain damage, sniffing glue is their dangerous way of suppressing hunger and getting a high in a world that offers them nothing else. Frequently moved on by the authorities, many have taken to living underground in squalid and rat-infested tunnels and passageways. Many of those who do have a roof over their heads are confined to woefully underfunded state orphanages. Here too you find children abandoned by parents, unable to cope with chronic illnesses that require constant attention. Hearing of their plight, UK Salvationists decided it was time to put their Christianity into action. Colin, you obviously find it very upsetting to come in here today.
It doesn't get easy. This is my second visit to this orphanage. However much you do, it's not going to be enough. You want to do more, so it's still upsetting to see.
With the stories you heard about the Soviet Union and how powerful it was, you know, to see the poverty here and the grief really breaks your heart, and you just can't walk away. You've got to do something to help.
Tell me where you go.
Colin and David, both police sergeants, first came to Ukraine to run music schools for disadvantaged youngsters. Never for a moment did they imagine they'd encounter scenes like these. Most of the children, like 5-year-olds Veta and Pavel, who's 7, suffer from cerebral palsy. At one time, that meant being confined to bed 24 hours a day. Clearly, something had to be done. The question was, could other UK Salvationists with a range of skills be persuaded to refurnish the Znamenka orphanage and transform such wretched young lives? The message hit home. Dozens rallied to the cause. They raised money for the refurbishment and gave up their holidays to pay their own way to Znamenka.
This is fairly typical of the standard of bathrooms we've been finding in the orphanage. Although it's in a reasonable state of repair, there is no hot running water in any of the bathrooms. What we did last year is we completely renovated 6 bathrooms, installed 6 new bathroom suites.
Сталося за цей місяць, як ви відпочивали, що нового, а тоді ми з вами трошки позаймаємось. Добре? Так. Сонечко світить. Сонечко світить.
This is one of the most encouraging developments, a really determined effort to provide an education for the children, all thanks to a dilapidated room being turned into a smart and fully equipped classroom.
Ще вони що роблять, дерева?
As for those muscles which once lay dormant, a chance for much needed exercise in a playroom now serving as a mini gym. The orphanage's director says the intervention of the UK Salvationists has completely turned the children's lives around.
Общение раньше было только непосредственно в комнате, в которой они находились, а теперь общение...
Once the children's existence was confined to just their own room. Now they know about the world outside, they listen to music, they laugh, and they discover so many new things. You can hear their laughter all day long. Many of them have even started to speak. The difference is incredible, and deaths have reduced significantly.
Смертность у нас уменьшилась намного.
The annual budget the director receives from the state is just £130,000. That's to provide a home for 118 children, as well as food, clothes, medicine, heating and transport, and to pay the salaries of the doctors and nurses. The Salvation Army has even helped the orphanage to build its own bakery, allowing it to earn desperately needed income from selling bread to the local townsfolk. The commitment of the UK Salvationists is not without its rewards. The children's new zest for life has now spurred the volunteers to widen their work in Ukraine, bringing new hope for many more of the country's unluckiest and most vulnerable children. Well, this is Winton Court in Bournemouth, where Salvationists have really taken the Ukrainian project to heart. Inside, on a daily basis, is a real hive of activity, but none more so than with the next Ukrainian mission just weeks away. Here's a prime example of expressing a Christian faith in a range of practical ways. The shop alive with people looking for bargains, stock arriving constantly, and the proceeds all used for work in the community. Some of the clothes, though, are being packed for the next visit to Ukraine, and a healthy number of Salvationists and volunteers are going too.
Fishes in the water, fishes in the sea, we all jump up with a 1, 2, 3!
Teaching and supervising preschool playgroups demands a range of the very skills that are in great demand in Ukraine. At Winton Core, specialists and volunteers alike are willing to transfer their expertise to places of pressing need, like the Znamenka orphanage.
Am I hurting you? No, that's good.
Anne Innes and Mary Randall, who run a foot care clinic at Winton, have been before and feel called to go again, particularly to help those confined to their cots.
With the cerebral palsy, they can't really sit as still like this, you know. They don't feel the pain because there's a lot of insensitivity in their limbs.
We've been able to try and train the care workers. When we go over, we take the nippers and the files and as many things as we can, so that when we come away, it's not been a waste of time. They can then get on and try and do the same. That's what we try and do.
How many times have you been so far?
Oh, I'm really fortunate. I went right at the beginning in 1994, that first trip, and I've been every other year since with the team. It's really changed my life, there's no doubt about it. Ukraine has been a life-changing experience. I never have seen such poverty.
So now the man who launched this amazing humanitarian mission in 1994 finds himself leading an ever-expanding volunteer group to Ukraine.
There you are then. These are for the orphanage.
One of the great things about our party, and there's 41 going out this year, is that the age is raised from 16 up to 70 plus, and they've all got a part to play. Some people might think that they haven't got any skills, but just being able to put a youngster in your knee and show them that you love them is fantastic.
A real example of faith in action, and of course we wish the team every success with their forthcoming mission. Now, since earliest times, the Salvation Army has also been involved with prison ministry. The Home Office has accredited nearly 100 Salvationists as prison chaplains. Some give just a few hours a week, others are full-time. We followed one of them.
In England and Wales, there are 77,000 people locked up in 139 prisons. That's the highest total ever, and the numbers are increasing. Nearly all of them, 95%, are men, and a third are serving sentences of at least 4 years. Duncan Cameron's a Salvation Army soldier from Nottingham. He's also a chaplain, working as part of a chaplaincy team in Nottingham Prison.
I came into chaplaincy work essentially through an interest in prison visiting.
Yeah, fine.
And so then later on in the story, when I found through redundancy from work that I had more time on my hands, one of the first things that I thought about was whether I might be able to find some way to do some chaplaincy work or some prison work through the Salvation Army.
We had 10 yesterday and it was 2. One guy went back yesterday.
Duncan's one of 90 Salvation Army chaplains working in prisons in the UK.
It's a multi-faith chaplaincy, although most of the people involved are from the Christian denominations.
We do need to listen.
Indeed.
You do, don't you?
Yes,
Yes.
you know. I'm in here just one day a week, but I'm very much part of the team, part of the staff team who are hoping to minister and deliver the service of chaplaincy to the inmates.
The Nottingham team's headed up by Michael Phillips.
We probably see ourselves as being there to encourage people wherever they are in their faith journey, particularly those who've had a lot of knockbacks in life, and to help them to make sense of where they are. Talking as a Christian chaplain from our Christian faith and experience, and our belief that Jesus, who died on the cross between two other prisoners, has a unique empathy, much more than I can have, with a man or woman who's in prison.
The prison's been here since 1890, and there's always been a chaplain here. Today, all prisoners have the right to practice their faith, whatever their religion. And the chaplaincy team needs to make that possible by arranging events and services to meet the needs of the different faith communities. But that's not all they need to do.
Well, some of the work of the chaplain team actually is doing what we call statutory duties, and under the various sort of pieces of legislation which govern how prisons operate, there's things that we have to do. So that would include going and seeing anyone who's in the prison hospital and also anyone who's in the segregation unit. And there's a requirement for a chaplain to see any prisoner arriving within the prison within 24 hours of them getting here. Duncan Cameron, Salvation Army chaplain.
Yep, nice to meet you.
Andrew came in last night.
New stuff? Or?
No, I'm on a recall.
Right.
I was only out of prison for 2 days, and I got intoxicated.
Yeah.
And said the wrong thing to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And I'm back.
Okay. And how was your mum when you spoke to her last night?
She's angry with me.
Is she?
Yeah, which is natural, I suppose. I can see a point of view.
Mm. How are you about being in prison?
Very upset, really, and angry with myself about being back.
Right. Scared about being here?
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yes.
Okay. And have you been telling that to the other officers? Do people know what your state of mind is?
Yes, they do, yes.
All right. Okay.
I've been put on a suicide watch.
Right.
Due to me depression and anxiety.
Okay. Right. And I find that prisoners who want to engage with a chaplain are very willing to talk, and I find them more open about their faith, frankly, than in most conversations I have on the out. There's an immediacy that people are just willing to talk.
Prisoners spend most of their time locked up in their cells, but they are allowed to attend some daytime activities. And all prisoners who've already been sentenced are required to work. The idea is to provide them with skills and qualifications, but in practice the work is often repetitive and mundane. Masantu has been in Nottingham prison for 6 months.
When you are restricted of your freedom, it's not good at all. When I arrived, it was very, very difficult for me. I was actually thinking of committing suicide, for real. But by the help of the chaplain, the Bible study and other things, I was able to reassure myself that after all this, life will continue.
Masantu is one of the regulars at the weekly Bible study, which Duncan leads with the help of volunteers.
Precisely right. And I want us now today to look at this story of the prodigal son. Yeah? Could somebody please just read that section, chapter 30? I just love particularly the work that I do within the Bible study. I get a tremendous feeling of being part of something special when we get the group together. It's never the same group. And it's just a fantastic experience to be part of that. A privilege. I love that part of the job.
With the young one going away and coming back, he's going to see the love that he gets every day. He's going to see his brother get that.
In a moment, yeah.
In a moment, so and it's like bang it.
That's good, I agree with that.
But is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's good for all of them.
If you find yourself in that position of going away from your father, you can still come back and ask for forgiveness and you will be forgiven. That's what
this idea that the younger brother there, in amongst the pigs will, suddenly comes to his senses and returns home. I think that's powerful, and that resonates often, I think, in the minds of people.
Who's the best Christian then? A Christian who does everything straight, all the lies, don't do nothing wrong, don't sway left, don't sway right, straightforward, focused, yeah? Well, you've got a Christian who's done this, he's broke off a bit, he's come back, he's asked for forgiveness, he's felt his self-asked forgiveness, he's felt God forgive him, and he's back on track again.
Equal.
What does it say?
It's like loads of different lanes on the motorway, but they're all
in the
same place.
Experience.
Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever been there, sometimes you end up doing stuff that you know, what am I doing?
When I was getting into trouble before, and I was always down segregation, Doug used to come down regularly, do his checks to see how the lads are and that. I could explain to him, Duncan, I'm feeling like this, I'm having a bit of this problem. He'd sit there, listen to me, and say, right, I recommend we say a prayer together, and he could recommend a passage as well. So it'd be good, it'd be like helping me, you know, after he said a prayer, read the passage, and things would fall into place sometimes, yeah.
Anybody had a prayer answered recently?
Yeah, today.
What's that?
Made peace with someone, a kind of thing I've been arguing for a long time.
Excellent. So, thank you. And you've been praying about it?
Yeah, and I didn't know that he'd been praying about it as well.
Wow.
And do you know what? Check this out, Gov. It's been like we've been colliding, and today we got trucked in the same cell together down the block.
Wow. Thank you. Pleasure. Anything else? We want to give thanks to God for answered prayer. That's super. Thanks for sharing. Go on.
Yeah. When I come into jail, my 2 kids went into foster care.
Right.
So it's been playing on my mind and everything. I've been praying about them, whether or not they're going to be coming back home in the arse.
Ah, brilliant. Ah, brilliant. Yes, that's so Hi there, how you doing?
Hello, Duncan.
How you doing?
I'm fine.
You got a minute? Can I come in?
Yeah, come in.
All right.
Come in.
Good.
Have a seat, please.
Thank you. How you doing?
You're welcome. Yeah.
It's
fine. Are you?
I think one of the key things for the chaplain is not to be judgmental.
4 weeks now. And that should be running up in the next step.
If somebody in a conversation with me clearly wants to develop and talk about their offence, then that's fine. Happy to listen. But usually people don't really want to do that. And I find for me, in most situations, it's not necessary for me to know, even in overview, what the situation is.
On most days, the prisoners have an hour of recreation in the evening. It's a chance for Duncan to meet people who wouldn't normally come to a church group.
I think for many it's just somebody that's got a bit of time for them, and that's why I like at least part of my day not to be too structured. It's those chance encounters that you don't know quite what's happening when you're walking through the wing and somebody says, have you got a minute, Gav? And just to be able to talk there is the principal way in which we can help.
It's Tuesday evening, and inmates are gathering for one of the midweek worship services in the chapel. Volunteers have joined chaplaincy staff to help run the event.
Right, we're just going to have, first of all, a welcome to anybody who hasn't been before. It's really good to see you who are here. We're going to start off with a bit of worship.
And if we can encourage, in Jesus' name, a man or a woman, then I think that of itself is doing what Jesus said, if you visit someone in prison, you're visiting me.
Let us bow our heads for prayers. Heavenly Father, we thank you.
Some people actually do find Christ at the point at which they're at their lowest. And for some of them, you know, the prison experience doesn't take them any lower than that.
Touch the heart that can't cope, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I feel that the chapel worship, the Bible studies, the pastoral visiting is positive. If they remember that there's someone who's come in the name of God to be by their side and have got something positive from that love and friendship, then that can be only good in a person's life.
I just feel like I'm doing something I'm being called to do. And it's great that, you know, and everything else that I'm doing in my Christian service in the church congregation, helping run the band or whatever it is, this, just going into prisons, chatting to some folk that, frankly, I would never have met before, this gives me an opportunity, I believe, to do what God wants me to be doing.
Prison ministry is still a key element in the work of the Salvation Army. And that's just about it from this edition of Link, but not till we've heard from someone you may have seen at Roots, Brett Riches, with a song from his latest album, Hope for a New Day Coming. Till next time then, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Opportunity comes to the children of God, and we can't walk alone. We won't walk alone, and we'll never turn back. We cannot turn back. Opportunity comes to the children of God, and turn up our sets and try to block out all the suffering and pain, and still call God's name in our little songs and comfort our home. Well, what do we need? Is there anything we need? But we want more and more. Consuming and store while the rich get more rich, the poor get more poor, and we are not satisfied.